Thanks for checking out another project video. My name is Mitch and this is Made by Mitch, and today I'm going to show you how I made this puzzle rack that fits inside an Ikea shelf. Let's check it out. So the first thing I had to do was figure out a plan for the size of this project, come up with a cut list, and for me, that looks like writing it on a scrap piece of wood like you're seeing me do here. However, I'm starting to make detailed plans available for all of my projects, and if you're a part of my Patreon tribe, then you get all of those plans for free. I'll leave links for both of those down in the description below. The first thing I did with this project after getting the plan together is making all my cuts. I cut the width of all the pieces using the Craig rib cut, and then I took those long pieces over to the miter saw and I cut those using the miter saw. Now you can do this just as easy with the circular saw, but since they were all different lengths, it was just a little bit easier to do it this way. I did this for the two sides, the top and the bottom. Next, I marked where all the dados would go, where my shelves would slide in. To do this, I used this little multi-mark tool made also by Craig, and this came in handy when it came to making really precise marks. I use this thing a lot for little things like this, but when it came to the ones that were a little bit further away, I had to use a tape measure just because the multi-mark only goes to a certain distance. Next, I raised the blade up to the correct height, and then I could start making my dado cuts. Now, I just did this incrementally until I found the right placement that would fit the shelves. You typically would use a dado stack for this. I don't have that, and my table saw won't handle a dado stack. So I would make one cut, move it over a 1/16 of an inch, make another cut, move it over a 1/16 of an inch, and then I spaced these shelves out an inch apart. And doing it this way worked out really well. After I made the dados and the side pieces, then it was time to add the rabbets on the top and the bottom piece where it would connect to the side pieces. Now to do this, I used the same method. I would run it through the table saw, move it over a 1/16 of an inch, run it through again, and I did this until my 1/2-inch dados were cut. I forgot to mention that I also cut rabbets in the back of this that would fit the backboard, and that's what I'm doing here. I had to assemble everything together, measure where the back would go inside the rabbets that I cut for the back. I used a piece of 3/8 inch Luan for the back piece. I cut it out with a rip cut, and then I got really precise with the cuts using the table saw sled. It made it a little bit easier to get it really precise. And the next thing I could do is glue everything together. I first started by gluing the sides, top and bottom together, and I used plenty of clamps to make sure this thing wouldn't move and make sure it was square when I glued it up. After that, I took the clamps off, and then I could glue on the back piece. I did the same thing, just added wood glue, put the piece in place, and then used plenty of clamps to keep it tight in place. Using these rabbet joints made this box a lot stronger, and by the time I took the clamps off, this thing was really strong. It works a lot better than butt joints because there's a lot more glue surface area for you to glue onto rather than just the standard butt joint. I decided to dress it up a little bit using edge banding. This was the first time I've ever used edge banding, and it was a really simple process. I got the edge banding that already had the adhesive on the back of it, and all I had to do was cut it to size, lay it out where I wanted it to go, and then use an iron to heat the adhesive up, which would help it adhere to the wood. I used a piece of craft paper, that way I wouldn't get adhesive all over my iron. After getting one piece in place, I used this utility knife just to get the corners mitered so that way it would connect with the other pieces around the box. I just repeated this process all the way around the front part of the box. After I got it all glued in place, then I had to go in with an X-Acto knife and also a utility knife to clean up all the excess that was sticking over the edge. Next, I used an X-Acto knife to get in each groove where I've cut the dados earlier on the table saw. That way I could slide the shelves in and out. And while I'm doing this, I wanted to take a second and thank all my patrons over on Patreon, especially the top supporters. Thank you so much for your continued support on my channel. If you want to support the channel or get free plans, click on the link in the description below. So after the box was assembled and the edge banding was complete, it was time to sand everything. I sanded all the way up to 220 grit, and then it was time to cut out the shelves. Now I used the rip cut also to cut out the shelves, and then I brought those over to the table saw and just to clean up the edges to make sure they fit perfectly. I found the best way to sand the shelves was to use a sanding block. That way I could get the corners and edges really good. I did have to try some of the shelves more than once and recut them just to make sure everything fit perfectly. Some of them were a little more snug than others, but it worked out just fine. And after it was all assembled, it was time to finish it off, and I used spray shellac to do this, several coats sanding lightly in between. I really like the way this turned out, and it really helped organize some of the puzzles and things that we have on our shelf that we needed cleaned up. And it's cool because you can remove the shelves and add bigger puzzles or any other kind of items or papers or whatever it is that you need to store. This is a great option to be able to do just that. If you like this video, you may like some of the other projects I have on my channel. I'll link those right here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.